Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, comics we want to read, and everything in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, you might be familiar with this property. You got two songs that are memorable for this one. You got
I was almost going into it.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then we got Go Ninja, Go Ninja, Go, 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 Go. Oh yeah, man, that was my jam when I was a kid. But yeah, we're doing the actual comic book for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Volume 1, which covered issues 1 through 3 of the original series, and then a special like one-shot about Raphael. So, for all of you who don't know, I don't even know if there's people who don't know what this property is, but we'll go into a little history at the beginning because I looked up all this stuff for funsies. Because, I mean, we all know, if you've seen the movie and the show and all that, we all know the story of the Ninja Turtles, so we don't need to explain to you everything that happens in this comic necessarily. But
Yeah.
I will say, so this comic is from 1984. It was written by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. And drawn by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. They both did the artwork. So, like, one guy would draw this stuff, and then he'd pass the same page to Laird, and then he'd draw some of it, and then they pass it back. Like, So that might explain why some of it sometimes looks a little wonky or a little different on panels than others, but it gave it a cool look, like a very indie look, a gritty look. And then also, this is the most successful indie comic of all time.
Oh wow!
Think about
time.
it. Can you think of another indie comic that permeated culture so much? I can't.
No, I can't. I can think of other indie comics that are popular, but not as.
I'm gonna go on a limb
on
and
the
say this
fandom
is
of Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, well, until the Marvel movies, this was the most successful comic book of all time. Like, as far as media is concerned, it had its own cartoon, had its own movies that people like.
Huge merchandising toy lines.
Yeah, I mean,
do you remember going to toy stores back in the 90s? It was like a Star Wars half an aisle and Ninja Turtles half an aisle.
Yes,
crazy,
fantastic. We had the blimp, we had the turtle
I
car,
had the helicopter with the punchy arms.
but we definitely had all the toys. Definitely loved the movies when I was a kid.
Oh yeah,
I was a big sucker, like I said, for the Vanilla Ice song in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
And that cartoon, I think I had a whole birthday like around 2 or 3.
Oh, I'm sure I did.
That was just Ninja Turtles.
Yes. So, this is definitely the most successful property, one of the most successful comic book properties of all time until, like, the Marvel movies happened. And then, for sure, like, the most successful indie comic of all time. And it's funny, the origin of this, like, Eastman and Laird were like, we want to create a thing. So, like, they met, in a roundabout way in like New England, and they started Mirage Studios. And it was called Mirage Studios because it wasn't a real studio. They just named it that, and they were like a house, two guys in a house basically. And then they were like, we're gonna put this out, and it cost $1,200 to print the first issue. They had 200 of their own savings, and they borrowed 1,000 from like an uncle, and then they printed the first run, and then they had a little extra over, so they or a little bit extra money left over, and they put an ad in like the back of a comic book that said, like, they had like the picture of the first cover, and it said like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like the coolest new thing in comics or whatever. And from that, they got a bunch of orders, and then they sold out. Then they did a second printing, sold out. Did a third printing, sold out. Then, like, eventually they wrote the second issue, sold out. Like, it was crazy. Yeah, I don't even know if you can do that nowadays, but it was definitely like a cool, like, underground phenomenon. And then it just happened. That's like when in the 80s, when everybody was trying to make TV shows, like cartoons for kids to sell toys, and then they got picked up from that kind of thing. So just blew up. And then the origin, I think I talked about this in the Wolverine episode we did, but the origin of ninjas in pop culture was from Frank Miller, and then I think these guys brought it to the next level because Frank Miller did Daredevil, where he introduced the hand, And then these guys were like, we have the Foot Clan. And then ninjas blew up because of Ninja Turtles. So I think we can all thank them for ninjas being a thing in the zeitgeist of pop culture. And then also, like, this was like a not a full parody, but it was a parody of a bunch of different things going on in comics. So it was ninjas from Frank Miller. There was the New Mutants, which was like a new teenage team of mutants in Marvel. And then Cerebus, which is it's like a anthropomorphic aardvark. I think he's like Conan-ish or something. I don't know all his stuff. But like I've seen a picture of him and he's in like kind of Conan garb. So I don't know. He just goes on adventures, I guess. But he's an aardvark that is humanoid or whatever. So they took all those things and just turned them into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So issue 1. Well, first off, you tell me what you thought of it. Also, we read the black and white original version.
Oh yeah, the original.
Because it came out in black and white originally. Because they, like I said, they didn't have any money. So
yeah.
The covers, each of the first 4 covers are one color. Like it'd be like they put a hue on it, like one hue color. So the first one's a red hue, and then it's a black and white image of the Ninja Turtles all together. And then each one had a different color on it. And we should say, so it's black and white. Unlike the cartoon, the turtles do not have different colored bands on their heads.
So yeah, the only way, and that was one thing I was worried about going into reading this. I'm going to lose track of like what turtles what, but they all have their weapons. That's what made them different too. So
exactly, they have their weapons.
I didn't have any issues,
and they did a real good job of like in 2 panels where we couldn't show the weapons of each one, but they were fighting. They'd say like, "What are you doing, Raphael? I don't know, Michelangelo." So it was apparent of who was who.
Who was what? Yeah.
I thought they did a really good job of that, actually.
Oh yeah, I never once had a problem with
I didn't have any
who
issue.
was on the page.
Yeah, but basically the first issue, I was surprised how this was almost exactly the same origin story and everything from the movie, like the live action movie. Blown away by like how faithful they were in that movie.
Yeah, because I've never read this before, and then going and starting this, I was like, wow, I do know this story almost to a T. Like,
same names and everything.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's a tiny bit more on the I don't want to say because there was no color, but bloody side because they're actually like,
it's way more violent.
Killing people in this one, killing bad guys, I should say. They're not,
Yeah,
but. Besides that, like it's like almost to a T, like how down the line was. Like, all right, so it starts out actually in Japan, and then
that's not how the comic starts. That's how like the origin.
But yeah, like it's exactly like Splinter is an actual rat, and he had a master. And there's a lot of it was really cool.
Yeah, so we'll just start at the beginning of the comic because that comes out later. So, or like the origin story. So it starts off. Turtles in an alley. They're on their first night ever being Ninja Turtles outside in the real world. So they're fighting a gang of toughs called the Purple Dragons. And they didn't say what they were doing. They just said, these are the Purple Dragons. We're going to take them on. And so we assume the Purple Dragons have been terrorizing.
Some street punks.
Yeah. And so they take them on. And this is where you see like how right away, way more violent. They don't show a lot of like straight up murdering or whatever, but like they definitely have Raph
weapons flaying and like the
blood is in the air. Yeah,
of driplets in the air.
Yeah, and then you have like Raph. He like has his size, and he's just like in the movie and the comic book or the cartoon. There's like Raph is always just like the song. Raphael is cool but rude. All right, everybody else doesn't have as much of a pronounced like personality yet in this first one. Although Donatello does work on computers on the second issue. So
and Leonardo is seemingly the leader. He's kind of like calling the shots.
But they didn't really go into all their personalities except Raph. Raph was like the most like, oh, he's a hothead, Yeah. And so Raph in this first fight scene, he like takes his size, and you just see a panel of him like he has his size in his hand, and then there's a shot from the front of him, but the back of the 2 guys he's stabbing them into kind of looks like he's punching them in the stomach because you can't see the size ending, coming out of the back of them, but he had them in his hands when he punched them. So you're assuming, oh, he just murdered those people. They're like, yeah, we won. They beat the street toughs, and the cops show up, and then they're like, we got a ninja vanish or whatever.
Yeah. They're like, Splinter will be pleased.
Yeah, and so they go back. They get into a manhole cover and they vanish into the sewers. They arrive back home, and Splinter, this is the rat, as we all know and love. He's their master, and he's like, "How did it go, boys?" And they're like, "You would be proud of us, master. We beat him, and it's our first night. And yay!" And he's like, "I knew you were ready," kind of thing. And then this is where he's like, "And now I will tell you your whole origin story," which I'm like, they're 15. You didn't tell them any of this shit before. Like, why wouldn't you tell them that when you're like, "Hey, I want you to train"? Why?
Yeah, he was like, I'm going to tell you why I've been training you the past 13 years.
Yeah.
This is the reason.
Yeah. Yeah. It was unbelievable, but also like, it was ridiculous, but also like fun, because, they just get to the point. Also, these issues are like almost double the size of a regular comic. They're 40 pages long. So you get like a lot of story in it, and like you can explain a lot, but he had to like obviously cut some corners in the origin telling and all that stuff as far as like how fast it happens. And now I'm going to tell everybody what your origin is, and also the reader. So, but yeah, so we hear the origin story is Splinter was the rat of Hamato Yoshi. And as he says in the movie. And then like he was actually like in the Foot Clan, which they never say.
That's true.
It's the Foot Clan, right? Yes.
No, yeah, it's the Foot. Yeah, yeah. They are the Foot Clan in Japan as well.
Yes.
And he's like one of their top like shadow warriors.
Yeah, it says he is their top shadow warrior. Yes. Like he is the best of the best. And then so he's actually like a bad guy, I guess, which they don't really talk about. But I mean, if he's with the Foot Clan, which you would assume is like a triad gang or something, or a League of Assassins or something, he's the best assassin. So he must be a bad guy. And then you have it says he was in love with Tang Shen.
This is the next part of this. This is actually the one little kind of like switch that they did from at least what we remember from the movies. And that
little twist. I think they just simplified it in the movies to like, okay, we don't need to say all this. But basically, Hamato Yoshi and Tang Shen are like Hamato's like, "Oh, I want to marry you," and whatever. And then there's another guy named Osaku Nagi, and Nagi and Yoshi are like, "Oh, we're gonna like," I guess we're both fighting for her affection. And then I guess Nagi like gets pissed that she chooses Yoshi and like beats the fuck out of Shen.
The crap out of her.
And I don't know if they implied rape or anything either, because like her clothes were kind of ripped and stuff, but definitely beat up. And so Yoshi goes crazy and beats and kills Nagi, who beats him to death. And then
he's dishonored.
And then he's dishonored. So he must leave and go to New York, because they have like, so him and Shen go to New York. So then Nagi's younger brother, Saki, he grows up to like get revenge. Basically, he becomes like the head of the clan, or like one of the heads of the clan. And then they're like, "You go to New York and like lead the New York branch."
The New York branch.
Yeah. And he's like, "Perfect. I will get revenge for like Nagi's death." And so then right when he like gets there, he's like looks up, finds where Yoshi and Shen are, and he just murders Shen and kills Yoshi. And in that process, and I like how like, Yoshi likes this rat so much that he, in like the heat of flight, running from them from Japan, brings his rat to New York. And then he has him there the whole time, 19 years or however long it takes for Saki to grow up and become like head of the clan. And then in this fight where Saki kills Yoshi and Shen, his cage gets broke. And so that's like how Splinter got on the streets.
And the whole time Splinter's with him, he is mimicking his movements.
Just like the
rat
movie.
In the cage going, "Hiya."
Yeah, and they specifically say this is ninjitsu. So that's the cool shit, right? So that's how like Splinter got to New York, basically. He does that origin. And then he goes on about how the Turtles got their origin. But did you notice there's a third origin story in this book?
Maybe not.
It's wrapped into the origin of the Turtles. So like after Splinter is on his own, after his master gets killed,
he's running in the streets,
eating garbage and shit, and he sees an old man about to get hit by a truck of chemicals, and a young boy runs out and pushes him out of the way, and he gets blinded by the chemicals.
Oh wow! No.
And that is the story of Daredevil.
I didn't notice that.
That is the origin story of Daredevil. So they literally are like, "Hey, Frank Miller, like we like Daredevil or whatever," and
That's funny. The tip of hat. So Daredevil and the Turtles were
in the same universe. I thought this would be super cool. So you have in the Ninja Turtles universe, there's the foot, and then in the Daredevil universe, you have the hand. What if there was some kind of like convergence of the two worlds, right, where they're in the same thing, and they have to beat the ninja organization that is the each body part or whatever, so like we are the head and the whatever, like, and like they all come together, they have to come together, Daredevil and the Turtles, to defeat the big syndicate. So I thought that would be cool, like crossover that no one's done.
that would be fun.
But since they're in the same world technically, you could totally like mesh them, or they want to be in the same world is what I'm saying. They have like perfect opportunity for that. So yeah, so Daredevil's in this technically, although only for a second as a boy getting blinded by chemicals. And then the chemicals from that truck wash down or they fall down.
Another boy.
It's like in a cylinder, just like in the movie.
Yeah.
And it hits a fishbowl that a boy was holding, watching the crash, and there was 4 turtles in it.
Oh no.
And then they fall down, and then Splinter runs after them to save them or whatever, and they landed in the ooze. And then he like picks him up. So he got some ooze on his hands, but he like picks him up and
puts him in a coffee can, tries to rinse off.
Yeah, and then carries them back to somewhere in the sewer. So and then it's like, oh, and then you like the next day you were giant, double the size you were before, and I also started to grow too. And then and then you started getting smart, and they're like Splinter. Pizza. Like they start saying all the fun stuff that, just like they do in the Ninja Turtles movie. So I was surprised at how on point this was compared to, with the movie and everything. Anything you wanted to add?
I just, he specifically was like, oh, I had like old like pieces from books, and there was one about art, and so that's why you're named Michelangelo Donatello.
Even when he's telling the story, he has that art book on the shelf behind him, and he even has a book that's called like How to Take Care of Turtles, and like, so they really like try to
nice little Easter eggy kind of thing.
Yeah, little things like that. So right after he tells this story, and he's like, "That's why I trained you in ninjutsu,"
and it is to kill Shredder. That is why
he's like, "I want revenge for my master, so you will kill him." So they come up with this plan to like. They go to like where the Foot Clan is headed, or is like where the organization is, like where their headquarters are, and Shredder's having a meeting with a couple guys that are like, you want Shredder's protection, so like if you don't, maybe something bad will happen or whatever, just like a regular gangster kind of thing. And the turtles break in, and Raph throws like his scythe through the window during this meeting, and then it has like a note, and it says like, "Meet us here at this time tomorrow," or whatever. And then that's what starts him. Like Shredder's like, "Who the hell is this? What?" And then the people that were there for like protection are like, "You can't even protect yourself. Why should we go with you?" So Shredder's pissed, and he's like, "What idiots? They're gonna feel the whole, power of the foot." And then, so they go to the building. I think it's the next night. Maybe it's literally. I don't know.
Literally, like the next night is like they meet on like rooftops.
Yeah, it's like, and they make sure it's in like an abandoned area. I think for what happens at the end of this, but it's like an abandoned building, and they meet on the rooftop, and they're like, "Where's Shredder? I guess he like pussed out or whatever." And then Shredder shows up with all the Foot, like all his minions, and then the turtles fight the Foot, and they get beat up, but they like win. It was cool that you actually get to see them get cut up and beat up and everything, because in the movies they're kind of like invincible for the most part. I was surprised they didn't show like them use their shell more often, because like in the movie they're always like
like get down the shell and like do a spinny thing,
or just like, oh, if you shoot arrows at their shell it just bounces off or something. But in this it just seemed like it's just like a regular back, but it looks like a shell or something. They didn't make it stand out or anything. And then so they beat up all the Foot, and they're like, "No, it's your turn, Shredder." And then I guess to be honor filled, I don't know, this was kind of weird because it seemed like you have to go 1-on-1 to be honor filled.
Yeah.
So they go 1-on-1 and they all get beat.
Yeah.
And then they're like,
Leonardo's like, "This is obviously not working. We need to work as a team.
We got to fight 4 of us against him." So they do that, and they start going after him. They start throwing stars and shurikens and shit.
That was cool because I never seen them use any kind of like throwing.
Yeah. different ninjutsu weapons. And then Leonardo, and this is like the hardcore part in this, he like runs in and he's like, yeah, and he like stabs Shredder right through the chest.
Yeah.
And it actually shows it like go through his chest and through his back and everything. He's like, this one's for Splinter or whatever he says. I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah, no, he does like he like stabs him, but I guess it's not like critical, but he
I don't know.
It seemed bad, but
It
basically
seemed pretty bad.
They beat the crap out of him and they're like, okay, you're defeated. And Shredder's like, no, I'll
Well, they said like, we're not going to kill you like he's not fully dead. He's still breathing.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we can't kill you because that would be dishonorable.
Yeah. You're defeated, so you have to do this yourself. Here's a sword.
Yeah, you got to commit
seppuku. Well, I was like, damn.
That's where you like slice your own belly open or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, ha, I will not do that. And you're all dead. And he pulls out his thermite grenade. And then they like kick him off the building before he can throw it at them. So the grenade falls, and then it shows him falling. And then there's like a boom. That's why I assume they have it in like an abandoned building area, because wouldn't either people will get hurt or there would be like,
or people would see them.
Yeah, see them. So
because they must stay in the shadows.
Yeah, they're ninjitsu, and and so that's pretty much how they go down there, and there's like the metal or whatever.
Yeah, they find parts of his armor, and I like that his armor. That's exact like it's again the same look and everything. That's one thing that stood out for me or remembered from the movies is I always liked the look of Shredder. He always seemed like such a cool looking bad guy.
With those claws and everything on his
like
hands.
Particularly is that scene where you first see him in the movie and like you see his helmet and all, and that's cool, and he's just kind of walking out and he's got that big silver cape, and like he stops to talk to all the guys and they like just move the cape back a little bit and it shows like all the
big
spikes,
shoulder
like
pads,
spikes, his hand spikes. It's really cool.
Yeah,
look and feel to him. And then in the comic here too, like he's got all of his. He looks really cool. It's a very unique looking bad guy. And I always really liked that.
They did a really good job designing everything in this. So.
Yeah,
and like we said, this was like a 40-page comic, so it's definitely you get your money's worth. It was $1.50, so even in the 80s, I think most comics were $1.50 or $2 back then. Maybe it was $1.50, and so you're getting 40 pages instead of 20, and it's an indie comic. So. Then we see issue. That's pretty much the end of the first issue.
Shredder is defeated.
Yeah, Shredder's defeated. Then issue 2 starts. It's like they go back, right?
It's literally like it's just like the continuation of the story. There's not much time passing.
Yeah,
they're like back at Splinter's. This was kind of weird because they had a couple of them without their masks on.
Yeah, a lot of the times they wear their masks, or they don't wear their masks in like their home, of course.
Yeah, and so it's just weird to see like. The blank turtle face.
Yeah, turtle face without a mask. It was different. You don't get to see him like that very often.
Yeah, it was fun.
And so like they're watching TV and there's like a thing about how there's like a rat problem in New York, and Dr. Baxter Stockman has made these like robots, which I totally remember from the show.
Yeah, robots.
Yeah, they're called mousers, and they're supposed to take care of they're like unveiling these to the public, and they're supposed to take care of the rat problem in New York City. And they've been given a grant and whatnot. And this is where you also get the intro of April O'Neil. She's his assistant. She's not a reporter like in...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, but she does have her jumpsuit and everything on, like she does late in the movie in the show. Or no, not in the movie, but in the show. She has like you don't know if it's yellow, but it's...
But jumpsuit.
It's a jumpsuit. And then so like they unveil it and they're like, hey, this is going to happen. And Splinter is like, I don't know about this. Because he's a rat, obviously. So he's like, we gotta focus on this thing. This might be a problem for us. So then it just says like weeks pass. There's been a rash of bank robberies happening where like weird little tunnels are appearing into the vaults of banks and money's missing and stuff. And they're like, I wonder how that's working out. And I thought this was funny. This is like revealed in a funny way of like who the bad guy is. Because like April's watching this on the news or whatever, and she's like, that's weird. I wonder what's going on with that. She's just wondering about it, like, generally. Like, look at this news story. That's kind of odd. And Baxter's like, let me show you my master plan. Like, right away. He doesn't even try to, like, hide it or anything. He's just like, oh, you think that's interesting, huh? Well, check this shit out. Look at my evil lab. And, like...
They go to this elevator and, like, in, like, another, like, secret room, and there's, like, hundreds and hundreds of the Mousers.
Yeah, they go into like a sub basement or whatever.
And she's like, "How did you get all of these? We had a small amount of money, and we only had like a couple.
It said they were supposed to be like 12 or 20 or
Yeah.
something. And there's like hundreds of them.
It's like an army of Mousers."
Yeah. And so that's when he's like, I have a great idea to like hold the city ransom, and
I've been stealing money.
Yeah, I've been stealing
The big
money.
robberies were me.
Yeah, and so
I have almost $1 million.
Yeah, he has $900,000. I'm like, wow, that's. I guess they have little mouths, so you can't carry that much stuff.
Carry so much.
And then he's like, so you want to join me, basically? And she's like, no, you're fucking crazy. And he's like, well, now I got to kill you. So she like runs away, and I guess because they're in like the sub basement, she just kind of like runs into a sewer. Basically, like she goes through a door and like through a thing, and then there's a sewer grate, and she goes through there. So she runs in the sewer, and he's like, perfect, I get to try out my Mousers in the sewer. And so like he sends like 3 Mousers after her, and he has like cameras underneath in the sewer for a while at least, because he's following her on cameras. And then I guess they went past the camera area, because then the Ninja Turtles come and kill him and knock him out. And then she's like, what the hell? What are you? And then they're like, hey. And then she like passes out because they're turtles and giant. And then she wakes up, and like Splinter's like, hi. It's just like the movie. Like this pretty much happens in the movie too. Not the Mousers, but like her fainting from seeing the turtles and then waking up in their den, I believe.
Yeah.
And so then I love this. It just says, then she's like, where'd you guys come from? Not really phased, but she's not like, oh my God, you're monsters. She's just like, giant animal things, like humanoid animals. I'm cool with this. And she's like, I got to hear this story. Where'd you come from? And then it's like,
so there's like, let me tell you.
We got about an hour or whatever. and then it's like, see issue 1 for like further details, which I thought was funny. And it was good. They didn't have to like rehash the whole origin or whatever.
But you just imagine Splinter there being like, "Oh, we got some time. Sit down. Let me tell you our whole story."
It said an hour later, so it took an hour to tell that story. You got to tell the whole story. So then they kind of like talk about why she was there, and she tells them about Baxter. And then while she's like kind of telling them about stuff, the TV comes up, and Baxter's on the TV, but he's like.
Interrupts the news or whatever.
Yeah, he interrupts the news, just like every bad guy in every movie.
Yeah,
where they're like somehow they're able to like jack into the TV and take it over, and then it's like he's in shadows, but we know who he is because we saw him. And Baxter's actually from the TV show, like the cartoon.
Yeah.
Is he the guy that's like a fly?
Yeah, he becomes a fly because of some like stuff he's doing.
Okay.
With genetics or something later.
So yeah, like he's on this TV and he's like, I'm gonna like hold the city ransom. I have the ability to undermine every building with my Mousers. He doesn't say the Mousers, but he just says like I'm going to undermine every building and make them collapse if you don't pay me. What was it, $1 million or something like that? I don't know. It was something like
$20 million.
$20 million. So a little bit more. Still not that much, but 80s money, 84 money, right? So we'll say that's like $80 million now or $100 million.
Basically, he's like, to prove it, you go to there's an abandoned-ish building.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring it down at this time.
Yeah, and then it shows like, cuts to that time, and then the news reporter's there, and he's like, looks like, he said it was going to be done at 3, and it's 3:01. I guess that was a dud. And then all of a sudden the building starts shaking, and then it collapses, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So then the turtles know this shit is real. So April's like, yeah, I know that guy. It's got to, it's Baxter. So they go to the Baxter building or wherever it is, whatever it's called. And then like instantly the turtle's like, we're gonna fight you, and he's all like, Baxter doesn't even know what's going on. I was surprised he wasn't like, what the fuck are these things? He just like instantly like, okay, like we're fighting people in turtle costumes, I'm assuming, or no, I don't know. A lot of people are unfazed by the turtles' appearance unless they're supposed to be, unless it's something, like a policeman or something, and they're like, "Whoa, what was that?" Or, So, in this, Baxter's not fazed at all, but they start fighting, and then like in the fight, which I'm like, they just beat Shredder. They should be able to take on a science nerd or whatever, but they're having a little hard time, and he's able to pull a self-destruct lever or whatever, and then he's like, ha ha ha, and then he gets punched by Leonardo, and knocked out. And then we find out that the self-destruct, unlike every other building or movie or whatever, isn't like a blow-up thing. It's like it calls the Mousers back, and then they eat the whole building themselves. So it's like they destroy the building on their own. So they're like, oh my God, the Mousers are coming. And they're trying to find a way to like stop it. There's a lot of this. It's weird. They did like a kind of good way of making it dramatic where they showed a lot of like the Mousers coming and like harm, you know, like, and then like, what are we going to do, guys? And then like April being like, maybe we could do a virus. And this is where you see Donatello be a little bit of a computer guy.
And he's like, oh yeah, I know some computer stuff. Like basically like what the other three turtles are like, you go and like try to slow them down.
Yeah.
And we'll figure out the computer stuff.
Yeah, and they find like C4. They're like, oh, we got C4 to blow up some of the tunnels that they're on, and that'll stop them, hopefully, slow them down a little bit at least. And so like Donatello and April are working on getting it, like either putting a virus in or changing the programming because she helped with the programming originally with the original Mousers.
So they're fighting and they set the explosives and then they're like, okay, now they're getting too many, so the turtles back up into the main area and they blow the tunnel, and all the rubble comes down on the Mousers, but
doesn't stop them very
long.
It
just slows them down a little bit. Then they start coming through again one by one from the rubble. And
yeah, they definitely made them seem like there's millions of these fucking things. Like they just keep coming, even at the end. Like they finally, it's funny because they even did this device where like in a normal show they'd be like, we figured it out. They have a radio signal and we're going to shut them down. That's what they decide. They're like, we can't put a virus in them because that would take too long. There's no other way to shut them down. And then Donatello's like, how are they controlled? And April's like, oh, they're radio frequency controlled. It's like, oh, well, then we'll just shut down their radio frequency. And then it's like, well, they did a weird thing where they're like, well, we can't, or it doesn't shut it down right away. It shuts it down in like 10, 9. Like there was like a time limit on it. So it was like, even though we shut them down, technically, we still have like tension being built because they're not doing it fast enough. And then finally, of course, at the very end, like the turtles are all like in the one little office where everybody was, and the Mousers are coming through the door, and then you shut down. They're like, "Whew, that was close."
Ooh-wee.
Yeah, yeah. And then so the Mousers stop, and there's no, and that's pretty much the end of issue 2.
The end,
which is just ends abruptly, like, "Phew, whoa, that was close," and then it. So, then issue 3 starts, and I don't know what you thought about issue 3. I thought issue 3 was kind of the weakest issue. If I was buying these, I would still probably continue buy it because the first 2 issues were good. But if I got the 3rd issue, I'd be like, are you fucking serious? Like, I got to wait another 6 months or whatever for issue 4 after that. But basically, after this whole thing, April's like, I'll take you guys home. And, like, here's my number in case, you need anything for later. And I thought this was funny because this is, like, in the movie, too, they do that. Where they're like, oh, I'll give you my number. And then, like, they show up right away after that. But so they go back to their home, and it's totally destroyed, and Splinter's gone, and there's blood everywhere.
What happened there? Like, that must have been maybe the Mousers got in or something
Well,
happened.
I think they see a crushed Mouser or something, like a broken one. So they're like, oh, but like Splinter's nowhere to be found. And then like Raphael goes crazy, and he's like, where's Splinter? I gotta find Splinter. And he like freaks out.
I feel like that was in the movie.
That was in the movie too. Yeah, Splinter. He has his like God, like his big moment where he yells Splinter, and he runs away. He's like, I'm gonna go find him myself because you guys fucking suck. And they're like, the other guys are kind of like, we'll find him, but like we gotta figure out where to sleep because we can't sleep in this broken place. And they're like, well, we'll call April. So they call April. And she comes to pick him up. In a
VW, almost getting ready to be like the turtle van from the cartoon,
pretty much. And so she picks him up, and like instantly, they get like spotted by a police cruiser or whatever. And they're like, "That's that robbery suspect car." And then I counted this because I was like, "How many pages of this fucking police chase scene are there?" But they run away because they're like, "Well, we can't let the cops pull us over because then they'll see there's giant turtles in the car." To which I was like, "Couldn't you just pull over and be like, yeah, these are great costumes, huh? Because who's going to believe it's like turtles?" And almost every other time someone's seen them, they always just assume they're a costume. So why wouldn't you just play that up?
Freaks in turtle costumes.
Yeah, just be like, oh, we're going to a kid's birthday. We're obviously not, robbers or whatever. So, but the cops think they're bank robbers, so they, try to pull them over. April's like, we can't stop. Your turtle's in the car. And so then she just runs from the cops. And then so they're going this police chase that is, and I counted, 12 pages long.
Oh, was it? It did seem like
it was
far too long.
12 pages out of 40 long. I was like, that is way too many pages for a police chase that doesn't mean anything. And then finally,
especially for the end of it.
Yeah,
because the end of the chase is like they pull up next to another van that's identical, and
it is the robbers.
It is the robbers.
And then the cops are like, which one is it? And then the turtles make that van flip with the bad guys, and they drive off, and the cops are like, oh, I guess that was the one that we were following, the bad one. And so they stop following them. And they're like, whoo, that was close.
All right.
And then we get epilogue. It just says epilogue.
And then finally, we find out about Splinter.
Yeah, so
after
it's like,
all of that.
What happened to Splinter? And Splinter shows him like laying in a sewer, like on a sewer grate inside the sewer, which I thought was weird. I'm like, why is there a sewer grate for water to drain in the sewer? It's a lower sewer for the sewer. But yeah, he's laying on a grate and he's all beat up, and then he like recounts what happened. And basically, 3 Mausers for some reason came to him, and this is where they could have used, like they could have made this issue about the Mauser. They could have been like 5 hours earlier while the turtles were dealing with the Mausers, and like this is what happened before they got the radio frequency or the self-destruct frequency.
They were like, big rat. Rah, rah, rah.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have this whole story. I don't know why they didn't do that, but it seemed like
funny.
Maybe they had like brain fart and they're like, well, let's just do this. I will say though, it did seem like an episode of the TV show, like the way that the cars are, running from the cops and stuff. They're like, we can't do it, April. And like I could totally hear the voices in my head and stuff. And so it definitely had the feel like the TV show captured the comic, but I don't know why the comic needed to have a 12-page car chase. And then, so we see, anyway, we cut back to Splinter, and he's like, yeah, he fought and they do the whole fight scene. Like he fought the Mausers as they came at him, and like one of them kind of like cuts his leg a little bit, which is where the blood came from. And then the big thing is he knocks himself out because he slips on some water.
Yeah.
After he beat them, basically. Or no, I guess they were still coming for him, and then that's when they got called back to, self-destruct or whatever. So like he slips and falls, and then it's like, oh, I'm so weak, I can't move or whatever. It was like, really? That's what knocked you out so bad or whatever? And he slipped and fell because I guess he was running from them, so he slipped and fell in a different area of the sewer. So that's why they were like, where's Splinter? We don't know where he is. You think they would have checked the sewer a little bit more, maybe followed the blood trail or something. But so they follow him back. He's there, and then some
guys in some weird suits.
It's TCRI, which is the company that made the ooze.
The ooze. That's the only thing that I noticed. He has they had hats that said that.
Yeah, they say TCRI on the hat, and they're in like some kind of uniform, and for some reason they're walking down in the sewer, and they're like, hey, look at this big old rat. I guess those Mausers didn't do their job all that well. And they're like, well, it's dead or whatever at least. And then Splinter's like, help or whatever. And
whoa, talking rat.
Yeah, that's crazy. Let's take him with us. So they take him back.
Take him to the infirmary.
Yeah, they take him back to TCRI's headquarters or whatever. And he wakes up and he's like, what?
This was hysterical. Like he wakes up, and it just seems like he's in a normal, like it's almost like a normal hospital bed.
Yes.
And like there's no like nobody else in the room, no like protection, nobody watching or anything.
Yeah.
This giant rat person.
Yeah. You were like, why? Okay, the one is a talking rat, so maybe we want to experiment on him or something, keep him in a cage or something. No, he's just in a regular bed. Might as well be a water bed. We'll just call it that. And he's like a big ass room, and he's like, oh, where am I? And he's like walking around, and he's like, he's just thinking like, what kind of place is this? And then he walks into like I guess it's the break room of this place, and there's the 4 bodies of I think it's 4, maybe 3 bodies,
3 or 4
of employees, and they're robots, and their stomachs are open, and there's 3 or 4 brains, like those Krang brains,
the Krang monster,
sitting at a table eating or playing poker or talking or something like that. And I can't remember exactly what they're doing, but it's something like that.
They're doing something, and then they're like, huh?
Yeah, and then it ends. That's where it ends. And then so they have there's multiple Krangs in this, which is interesting because compared to the TV show where there's one Krang and one big monster body.
Yeah, well, I think he's trying to if I remember correctly, he's trying to get like his people, his world, to like merge or whatever. But still,
yeah. And so that's like.
It was a fun tease, but
It-
also like all of that like car chase and like
for just that
for
moment.
one little panel.
Yeah. So then that's the end. It ends right there, issue 3. And then we'll do this one fast, but there was a little one shot of Raphael. Now his one shot starts, and he gets he's at a building, and it's very like Batman-esque, like Dark Knight. Like I'm so brooding and angry, and we're a Splinter, and I'm sitting on top of a building that's kind of like a gargoyle, and he's out looking for bad guys, and I believe and then it cuts to like some guy in his apartment, and I thought this was funny because Casey Jones in this is his first appearance, and he is crazy in this. He's literally like an insane person. He's watching 3 TVs, all having different action movies on them. One's got Dirty Harry, and one's got other ones, maybe like. What's it called?
I thought
Death Wish or something.
I thought one was news or something.
I don't know. Yeah, one might have been news, but there was definitely another movie that was an action movie and also Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, these streets need to be cleaned of the scum or whatever, and he like puts on his hockey mask, gets all his his smorgasbord of sports weapons, bats and hockey sticks and golf clubs, and he goes out to kick some ass. So he finds. And the thing with this is like he's all like whatever you're doing, you can be jaywalking and he will just almost beat you to a pulp, almost kill you, because like that's all. He's just like you're breaking the law. There's only one punishment for that, death or like almost death. And so
teach him a lesson.
So basically, this issue is like Raphael sees him beating up people for no reason. Well, not for no reason, but way overly beating them up. And Raph's like, you need to stop it. You got an anger problem, buddy, because he was all angry. And so there's like a juxtaposition of Raph knows when to hold back and Casey Jones doesn't. And then they go through this whole thing. And then at the end, like where they like, they chase each other, like, or mainly Raph is chasing him, trying to make sure he's not beating up people. And then at the end, they're like, you know what? We're not that different. And I'll like hold back a little bit and like we'll be okay together or whatever.
I think they hear like they're fighting and they hear like something happening. They're like, oh, we got to go stop somebody. Okay, well, we'll work together because we're not so different.
I got to keep my eye on you so you don't go too far. And then the other guy's like, yeah, and I got to help you out because you kind of suck. Like, it was also funny that like Raphael can beat a Ninja Turtle who knows ninjutsu and has weapons and shit. Like, or not Raphael, but Casey Jones. Can
he gives him a run for his money. I like just like in the movies and stuff. Like each weapon, he kind of talks like a little bit. He puts in like that kind of a sports reference, like batter up or like with a golf club 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I liked Casey Jones a lot, but I forgot it was different to see him like not
penalty box with the hockey stick or something. I don't know.
It was definitely weird to see him not like a good guy in this. He was kind of just like a Punisher or whatever. Yeah, a Punisher who almost kills people for jaywalking, like just overly punishing. So, yeah. Anything else you want to add?
No, I don't think so.
All right. So yeah, that's the first volume. What would you give this volume, John?
I liked it. It was fun. Being like you said, being that I already had the background of Turtles, and then seeing how like I was pretty dang faithful. Like I'm surprised I pretty much knew this whole story. So it was fun. I would say I would probably give it a 7. It's a
7?
Yeah, it's a good read. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
This fucks with my groundbreaking meter, right? Because it is groundbreaking, but it's also comic about turtles. So I think I'm gonna have to give it a 7 too, because it was groundbreaking for its time and what happened to it and what it became. And then at the same time, it's just a comic about Ninja Turtles that was kind of a parody about Daredevil. So for the fun, like for the nostalgia of it, if you've watched Ninja Turtles, you should definitely read this. Like it was really fun. It's cool to see where they came from. And
or for some reason you've never like really sat down and watched
them. If you've
like,
never seen the Ninja Turtles, I would love for you to read this and tell us what you thought of it. Because it's almost impossible to judge this without the lens of I love the Ninja Turtles from being a kid.
That's true.
So if you've never seen it, read this, email us or comment on our stuff and tell us what it was like reading it for the first time. But and you can get all this stuff. We read it digitally on Comixology, so it's all available now. I think Nickelodeon bought it, and IDW, the comic book publisher, publishes all the stuff in volumes now. So
and they ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. So 2 7s, surprisingly, for the Ninja Turtles. And on that note, we will see you guys next time.
We'll party next time.
Party on, dude. Cowabunga! Well, folks, hope you enjoyed that episode.
If you did and you'd like to follow us on social media, our Facebook is Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, and our Instagram is @Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word.
And be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more recommendations to add to your weekly pull list.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.